Hello and welcome to CTO Life Line, the monthly live stream conversation that helps CTOs thrive. And today's topic, what do we have to gain from better management? And we've got our guests, Rob England and Dr. Cherry Vu. But before we get into a deeper introduction of both of them, I've got my co-host with me, Noah Cantor. How are you doing, Noah?
I'm doing pretty well. It's been a good day so far. The internet over here is spotty. I know you were talking a bit before the show about you experiencing something similar. So there's an even chance at some point that our guests will actually be running the show. So that should be a lot of fun.
Well, we've done that once before, and it worked out really well with Catherine Belcher. So yeah, anyone can be a host here. We're all part of the conversation.
We are good with that, so no worry.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So welcome to the show, Rob and Dr. Cherry. We've been since the inception of this show. Noah and I have had the intent to have you on as guests. So yeah, we're really looking forward to having a great conversation with you.
Thank you.
So we might start with you, Dr. Cherry. Do you want to tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
I'm Cherry Vu, or I'm from Vietnam originally, but I live in New Zealand, and I'm working with Teal Unicorn. My partner is Rob England, and whose boss you already know. So I'm here for the beauty, and the brain is Rob England. So I'm following you guys. Happy to share with you whatever I know.
I think both of you are going to bring brains and beauty to this show. So yeah, thank you. And Rob, people probably know about you from all over the place, but what do you want to tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Rob England. So with Dr. Cherry Vu, we are a consulting business now working in executive business management and consulting, mostly in Vietnam these days because of Cherry. So you gave a very short introduction, Cherry, but Cherry has a big background in business, having been a CEO of a number of her own organizations, and also a long academic career leading up to a PhD, including having lectured in Vietnam to the National Academy of Public Administration, which is where they teach all the party members and civil servants, a bit like Singapore. They have professional government, which is a radical concept in the West. So powerful background there, whereas I'm more of an IT guy and came up through IT practices and operations and service management and then DevOps and all that kind of stuff. And when we met, I was just starting to explore business agility. So there was a sort of an obvious connection with Cherry's business background and my agility background.
And it's interesting that I have zero background in IT, even though I have a number of the tech companies. But again, I have no ideas about IT.
But she's still ITIL Foundation certified and DevOps Foundation certified.
How hard it could be, right?
Yeah.
I think that's evidence that a lot of the principles that we talk about are universal in nature.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's what we do, and we have a really good time doing it, and very great success at doing it, which is something we're always delighted to talk about in terms of transforming organizations. And I think we've kind of cracked the code without sort of blowing our own trumpet too much. I think we've cracked the code in how to do that. And that's what's interesting, I think.
Yeah, I'm really interested to hear about some of the experiences you've had working in Vietnam and working with businesses. Yeah, it sounds like you're coming from a very sort of whole of business sort of way of thinking about these things. So we'll dig into our topic. But first, Noah, do we have any housekeeping in terms that you'd like to share with the audience?
We've got our usual housekeeping, which is this is a live event, and that makes it a little bit different than a podcast, and that we actually really would like it if whoever is watching and participating asks us questions and interact with us. We will do our best to answer anything that comes up and have conversations with you as we go.
As an example, there we've got AJ, who we know well. Who we all know well, and says hi Sherry, hi Rob. So you can add your comments in and literally help, design and guide the show. So your questions can help direct our conversation to where you need it most. Don't hold back. If you're wondering something, it's not going to break our flow. We're going like this is just a conversation. We can take it anywhere. So you can be part of it and help shape where we go. Excellent. All right. Well, Rob and Dr. Cherry, are you often working with the CEOs, CTOs? Who is your normal point of engagement?
I'll go first. Yeah, mostly. Oh, hello, Mark. Yeah, mostly at these days CEO/owner level in Vietnam, but historically a lot of CIO level working in IT as a domain, and Cherry, would you add to that?
Yeah, I think we work at higher level, but so mostly and the industry that we have, from bank to financial to advertisement to factories and treatment or any sort of industries. We cross wide roads all over the place. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I have tried to bring it full circle and contextualize everything we've developed and written back into an IT context. So I did the mahi to put together a framework in IT terms of what it looks like in our world, having had that background myself.
Yeah. Well, we have a question there from AJ, which I'm going to come back to a little later on, once we're in the thick of the conversation. But we'll do a little bit more scene setting. I'd like to start. So for those people that you're engaging with, whether it's the CIO, CTO, CEO, what are some of the things that they're experiencing that sort of leads them to reaching out to you both and wanting some help?
Yeah. Can I say something? I think it's at the moment there's a lot of the companies that seeking for help is that they are quite overwhelming with complexity. And also they have a pressure to deliver faster to meet the demands of the clients, and they actually the way they do is they can meet that demand, can be fast and good enough. And although it's this struggle with the facing with new talent, people, younger generation, they can't cope with all the shit, working command and control, and they come and they leave, so they are quite struggle. Also, I think it's a change of the market is the most of the thing that they what got you here won't get you there. So they at the point come to them some point that they said they think that they need to change, otherwise they can't even continue doing business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, quite often they're in trouble, but not always. Quite often they're like, oh my God, the burning platform, we have to do something. Other times they're just creative people who feel like it could be better.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah.
So they see the opportunity more than, you know, the crush of expectation or something like that. They might more like, hey, we could grow even more.
Is there a different way of talking to them or working with them when they're not on a burning platform? Because most of the work that I've seen be successful has been under threat, right? People have to make a change. They can't leave things the way that they were. So for when they're not under threat, how do you engage?
Most of the people they came to us more than
Okay.
we come to them. So we never choose. We never try to do advertisement to say let's engage. They always come to us and say we need help and we want to be better. So in that position, it's easier for us to engage because we don't need to persuade them. Here's something you need to do, or here's something you need to change, because they all willing to and they already want. So they just don't know how. So for us, it's a little bit easier because we choose clients who are already be ready. Yeah.
How do you assess their readiness?
Yeah, normally because we work with CEOs, so I talk to them a lot about what they want to see whether what they want is the same set of value what we want. What
Okay.
we want is to make the people happier at the workplace, and then we need to make the systems better. Then we need to make the management systems better. Then the CEO is the one who have to change the mostly. So if they agree with that, we do step by step. But if they say no, we just want money, we just want to have a business bloom, and we don't care about the people's happiness or make their life better even, then we don't. We just no, it's not what we want.
And if they say, you know, I'm not the problem, they're the problem, then that's, you know, another massive red flag to just say, well, when you realize where the real issue is, come back to us.
Yeah. Yeah, and then when we rejected actually a number of people who invited us to come to work with them, but they say like, let's come and fix our people. I'm a good boss. I did everything for them, and I did everything right. But just what's wrong with my people? Then I think is they don't have that kind of openness mindset to welcome the new idea or to train themselves, or they behave differently. So we don't work with them.
I think if you put it in systems terms, we can work with anyone who has autonomy, has some sort of bounded system that they're in charge of, right? So I use the term the apex exec, right? If someone is the boss of a domain and has a reasonable amount of autonomy from their masters above them and can do what they do without, you know, having to go and get authority to do things. So they might, like some of our clients are the divisional boss of a region in a bank, but they have so much autonomy, they're effectively a CEO of an operating business. And some of our clients are CIOs who have enough autonomy within the organization that they do what they like within the IT function, within limits, of course. But, you know, very often IT is a black art to the rest of the organization, which is a big negative that there's not proper governance. But sometimes it's a positive that no one has any idea. They just say to the CIO, you fix it. We have no idea what you do. Here's the money and the power. So CIOs do tend to have quite a lot of autonomy in organizations sometimes to do stuff. And so it doesn't have to be a CEO, but it has to be that idea of an apex exec who has enough autonomy that we can work with them and they can create a mandate to do things and they can make things happen. Then once we're in that sweet spot, then we haven't failed, right? We're always successful when we have that situation.
That definitely resonates. So when I was a CIO, there was autonomy there because the CEO was often just like, "Hey, make all those computer-related problems go away."
Yeah.
So that gave you a good starting point. Eventually, though, it would become clear that there was a people connection to that, and some of those IT concerns were actually broader concerns that were relevant to the whole organization, such as because technology was permeating all aspects of work. But yeah, I guess it's a good place to start when there's some autonomy and some ability to move.
And I mean, one of the things we say to the Apex executive is that the governance is going to need to change. So the governance above the Apex exec that's directing them and creating values and aspirations and direction, governance, that's going to have to change too. So it's part of the Apex execs to convince their governors to different values, or hopefully to be already getting that pressure. But so the other sweet spot, of course, is when they're the Apex exec, because they're the owner. So a significant proportion of our clients are owner bosses, and that makes it really easy because you've got the governance and the executive in one person or a small number of people. But for a CIO, they're always going to have to go back to the CEO and to their bosses and say, look, your direction needs to change. For me to succeed, I need a different set of values, a different set of direction. Here's what I need from you. They have to sell up, just like a CE does to the board.
Yeah, that was very much the journey I was on. So we've got a question from the audience. So this is from Simon Copsey. And so apologies. Yeah, I was going to say apologies for my pronunciations in Chao. How do you help CEOs see that creating the conditions for happy staff is a good place to start when they're faced with financial pressure and other pressures?
Yeah, I think I often start from explaining that the people are not the problem. The system is the problem. So the system, whatever people produce, is a result of the system. So if we deal firstly with the system, make it better, then people will change the behavior and make it's not about direct give people more money or give them better condition of working condition or give them more holidays. It's not about it. It's about make people having a good system so their life at work at least better, and then from that we improve the system first. And so when people see that, okay, it's not about people, it's about how we manage them and how the system they are working in, the condition and everything they are working in that affect to their life and the results of the business, then they somehow get it. But if you say spend more money for people, give them more money and make them have more holidays, and they said, no, of course not. It's not start from there.
And free yoga and mandarins. Yeah. But having said that, we start off by improving the system and getting rid of the crap. I mean, getting rid of the crap out of the system early on kicks morale. I remember Cherry took 27 approvals out of a process in a clothing company, right? So just making people's daily lives easier with all the low-hanging fruit, purging the bullshit out of the processes, kicks morale up a big step straight away. Life is easier at work. But longer term, as we develop the performance of the organization, it does also mean money. So more money comes to the staff in two ways. One is the performance of the organization goes up, but also we persuade the organization to share more of the wealth with the staff.
Yeah.
So
Also,
all high-performing organizations are not just a few rent-seeking owners siphoning all the profits off, which is the standard model. They're organizations where more of that profit goes back to the staff, and we persuade the shareholders that it's not a limited pie. We're growing the pie. There's more money for shareholders and more money for staff that we profit share. And I think it was Corporate Rebels did some research and reckon that about 20% is a good rule of thumb. That 20% of the benefits, the profits, should be going to the staff, not the shareholders.
So one of our clients gave 33% of profit to share with all their staff.
I imagine that as you remove waste from the system, there's more profit to go around as it is. A lot less wasted time.
Yeah, and not so much, waste, but even more the above the line, even more the amplified performance, the higher revenues, and the main thing we unlock in organizations is not 10% reductions in waste, it's doubling of revenues. We don't get percentages, we get multiples. And so, like some of the bank units, they met annual quota within 1, 2, 3, 4 months. So,
What? So I continue, Rob, then. He's back.
It's either frozen or having a stroke.
Oh, did I freeze up? Did I?
Yeah.
Just for the very last part there, that's okay.
Anyway, lots of money. Yeah.
So I can give you some example of how much people gain after changing. So one client that we did have last year, their profit increased 80%.
That's astounding.
It's incredible, and they read a lot of they cut a lot of business that's not profitable, and they transforming totally from big companies to a very high function and lean, and quickly to adapt with the market. And we just got the CEO came to New Zealand to visit, and she's very happy with the result. Yeah, nobody can, even us, we can't foresee it. We know that it will be better. We know that we can make more money, but we can't imagine that number. That's what we can't imagine. Yeah.
And do you feel like many businesses will have that sort of inefficiency in there, or like?
A lot of low-hanging fruit. I would say yes. It's too much.
And it's the same everywhere. It's nothing special to Vietnam, right? I was pondering this just yesterday when I was talking to Anthony Orr in a different conversation, and I was pondering just about every organization I've ever been in, with remarkably few exceptions, is crap. The culture's crap, the processes are crap, the resources are crap. They're all ramshackle would be the word I'd use, and it's just does my head in that they function at all. It's Richard Cook. I'm not surprised that your system failed. I'm surprised it ever worked at all. And they're just all crap. And am I right? And And so, yeah, the low-hanging fruit is just extraordinary. The money's on the table.
So if that's all the organizations you've worked with, and most of the organizations I've worked with, and probably most of the organizations lots of the audience have worked with, is there something fundamental about the approach that we take to business that leads to this?
I think, I'm still trying to figure it out, but I think it's just good old 20th century management is the problem.
Okay. Can you?
I think the problem of being aware of who we are at the moment and be able to relearn and unlearn is hard. People may be aware of, we need to change, but the capability to unlearn and relearn is not that easy.
So can I just dig in a little more? When you talk about 20th century management, it's a term I see thrown around from time to time. It's a term I see used often pejoratively, but also often without an explanation of what that means. So can you give us a rundown of what is 20th century management in your head, and what's the alternative that you're talking about?
Shall I take that one, Cherry?
Yep.
As the theorist?
I empower you to do so.
I feel empowered. Yeah, so there's all sorts of ways to categorize it. There's theory X versus theory Y, McGregor, right? So theory X is that people need to be forced to do anything, and theory Y is they can be invited. Or it's alpha versus beta. So alpha as in male, power structured, and beta as in stereotypically feminine, empathetic, collaborative. It's scientific, it's Taylorism, and that people need to be told how to do their jobs, and it's Friedmanism. It's all the money should go to the shareholders. The purpose of a company is greed. All of those are different sort of aspects of what I'd call command and control, 20th century management. You have to make people do work, and everyone's steeped in that. It just the MBAs teach them that. That's what their bosses did. That's all the behavior that they've observed coming up through work, is that's what managers do. Managers tell people what to do. Managers are smarter by the fact that they've been given a title and therefore know more than the underlings, their reports, their subordinates. It's all in the language, right? That you report to your superior who will tell you what to do. That whole paradigm is just baked in, right?
So let's say that is all that some of the people in the audience today have ever experienced. And they didn't like it when they were employees. They didn't like it when they were team leads. They don't really like it as managers. And now they're in a position where they could bring about change, but they don't know what to change to. What is the alternative? You say you've had great success with alternatives, but what actually is it?
Can I say something?
What
need to change? I think it's the leader or manager have to change from command and control to trust and enablement. Give the condition for people to thrive. Not if you are a good leader, you should let people lead, not leading people. It's the first thing. I think we need to change the mindset, shift the mindset from command to and control to empower people. And also people, I think I reckon that I reckon that it's people tend to the whole organization and the mindset is to make a plan, very very fixed plan, and then just follow it, just plan once and execute it, that's it, and never change. And I think it's really really a big problem. And from tech, especially people in tech, the tech world, they think about tech will solve every problem of the organization, but it's not. So they need to shift from tech focus to human focus.
Feels like
It's
there's a
not
bit
that.
of that going on around the world, isn't there? Even
Yeah.
There is.
outside of.
There's absolutely a movement afoot, and so we're not inventing any of this stuff, right?
Yeah.
We're one of my titles is chief researcher, right? I spend a lot of my time just learning and observing and trawling and synthesizing this stuff together. So we've had a couple of insights of our own, but mostly this is just us tapping into the zeitgeist to just really starting to rock until certain recent political decisions may have put things into reverse for a while. But I always talk about how humanity moves forward 2 steps forward and 1 back, right? That's just, but the arc, the trajectory over time is positive. Humanity does actually advance, but I think at the moment we're in a 1 back. That's a term that I'm starting to use, and we just have to survive the 1 back, and then we can start moving forward as a society. But in the interim, we can still function within our individual organizations to try and preserve and move forward in what I call an island of light locally. So yeah, we're picking up on an international movement, and there are thought leaders, and there's exemplar organizations. There are stellar organizations around the world that are demonstrating that what we call human systems agility, right? The humanistics, Humanocracy is a great book if anyone hasn't read it. So the humanistics, the understanding of systems of and complexity, and the VUCA and all of that stuff, and adaptability and agility, and the necessity for traveling light and quick, and all of those sort of concepts are a worldwide movement, as you say, Daniel. Absolutely, it's not us operating on our own. We're just tapping into the modern thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's in both ways, right? In the positive, it's all of those thinkers, but I was also referring to world leaders looking at technology as the solution to all problems as well, which is a bit of a trend. And yeah, sometimes it is a good fix, but sometimes it's also what we do as people and how we change as people that might be the way we resolve some challenges. I would like to. We've had a couple of questions around your work in Vietnam, so I would like to bring that into the conversation, just so that, because I think there's an interest there, and it also helps set the scene. So we had AJ's question, which was keen to hear what trends you're seeing and exploring in Vietnam that we should be paying attention to, and then I would also like to add in Tirith's question. You mentioned desire for increasing speed as being a key motivator in your projects. In your market, are you seeing a significant push from regulatory or compliance change, or changes in risk appetite? So those are the two that are contextual to the market. And also, hi, Tirith. I first met Tirith in Malaysia, and he's now Melbourne-based. So good to see him.
I don't know what is focus on text, or I have no idea about the trend in text. So I just know about management, the changing. So we have number of, I don't think it's our 100 millions people. And I don't know how many number of business. They are really, really kind of moving forward to the modern ways of thinking and working and managing. I don't think that we are that advanced. But our Teal Unicorn tribe, we have about more than 10,000 members who learning and reading and observe what we are sharing, and hundreds of business. They actually either our clients or they got influence from us, try to apply the new ways, the opening ways of managing. So that's all what I know. And since we brought the ideas of business agility into Vietnam, the government, the media start talking about, being agility, business agility. And we are quite happy to listen to the language that we are talking in the media. People talking about it, so they more open, more willing to learn rather than keeping the command and control in the old way. Like so,
So
we are.
it sounds like an answer to AJ's question then is there's a trend towards more open management that that you guys are either partially responsible for, riding the wave of, or influencing, but that's increasing, and we'd significantly benefit from adopting similar things locally and in other places.
There's still a minority, though. As Cherry said, there's 100 million people in Vietnam, right? So
yeah,
and we've found 10,000 of them. It's still, I would still say the majority of organizations. And Cherry got called a dangerous woman on one of the big CEO.
Oh, congratulations!
Yeah. At the back, I was going to make a badge. I must get around to making a badge for her.
They called me a dangerous woman who brought the terrible idea to destroy business in Vietnam.
Yeah,
so
nice.
They have to, being aware.
Well, you've got their attention.
I think it's still a minority that are getting it the better ways. Definitely a minority. We're still leading edge. I don't think we can dispute that. And the Vietnamese market is a really vibrant one. I think the West, certainly New Zealand, is in a funk, and is I would say flat on its ass, whereas Vietnam is rocking and really vibrant, and so that is motivating a lot of organizations to do things and to have to move ahead and to want and to be progressive, and that motivation is very strong there. Whereas in New Zealand, I feel like people aren't even interested in innovation at the moment. It's very hard to even propose the idea of innovation. So I think there is that. I feel that difference between the two countries in terms of trends.
But also just based on the success you're having in Vietnam and the feedback you're getting about the increased revenue, the increased profits, it sounds like a lot of the organizations that you work with and that you help out will be in a position where they're able to outcompete traditional approaches. And so at some point, attention has to be paid, because if they don't, they're going to struggle to survive.
Yeah.
Yep. I think most of I can see that when, I don't know whether it's a Vietnamese or not, but when they start, they I always get the result. We always get the result, and compared to New Zealand, I think the change in, I don't know. Compared to clients we get in New Zealand, the phase of change is not that fast, I would say. I don't know whether it's low hanging fruit in Vietnam or do they are more open to the change. I don't know. Can't make a conclusion in it.
No, I think we are working with a minority in Vietnam, so we possibly just haven't been lucky in New Zealand. Haven't had that sweet spot that we have in Vietnam. I do think there is the potential here with the right leaders to do the same things. It's always the leaders. So for me, what was very enlightening is working with a bank, and Cherry's worked. They've got 100 and something autonomous divisions, and Cherry's worked with 40 or 50 of them, and boom, they rocket up the league table within the bank to be the top performing regions, and make all this money. And yet more than half of those divisions, the old men running them are like, well, it's not how you run a bank. I'm not doing it. There's freaking money on the table, and they're still going, no, it's not right. It's unnatural, you know. And so, and they're all old men, right? You know, and I feel kind of the same thing in this country. You know, if we can claw the dead old white hands off the brothels, then maybe we can get a bit more done in this country. But yeah, it's very enlightening to me that in a bank, which is so driven by greed, I mean, it's just greed as an industry, banking, right? And yet these bosses won't have a bar of what Cherry's trying to sell, even though their colleagues in an identical division are rocking it and bringing in millions.
I had a similar experience moving from Malaysia to New Zealand, and I feel like we talk about systems, right? I mean, I think there is something about the population density and various other characteristics of the countries. Malaysia, for instance, very entrepreneurial, lots of established and family-run businesses. So people got invaluable experiences really early on in their lives, sometimes in their teen years. And I feel like all of those aspects, helped create, a competitive environment where people were looking, they're looking for an edge. They're looking, to if they could try something different, then they'd give it a go. So yeah, it's there are definitely those pockets here in New Zealand as well. I think it's a country. I'm here. It's a country with amazing potential. I see it each day, but I also see some of that challenge that you've described as well. Do we feel like we fully answered Tira's question? So he was really wanting to know the motivation. So I think we've talked about some of the influences. So when your customers come asking about speed, what is it that's pushing them? They just want to see more company success, or is there external factors?
Sorry, I didn't get the question. Sorry.
So I was just testing to see if we'd covered all of Tira's question from earlier around the key motivation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're getting a lot of regulatory pressure in Vietnam to go faster, or even getting regulation out of the way to accelerate them. It is generally internal factors that they just want to be more successful or need to be more successful, existentially, to just stay in business. As I say, a lot of them are in trouble when they come to us, which does change their risk appetite. They're willing to give it a go. Which, I was just reflecting the other day on my most successful gig in New Zealand, and the one I enjoyed most in New Zealand was change in response to a crisis where a government department just completely trashed the department. IT trashed the department, and so the CIO had a mandate of that must never happen again. And, so never let a good crisis go to waste. So it's the same thing in an IT context, that the motivator is generally internal. I think that desperation very often.
Well, let's take it in the other direction then, because one of the things that I've seen in work in New Zealand and in the UK is actually a reluctance on the part of organizations to do things because of the perceived reactions from regulators to say that actually they won't let us do things that way. They won't let us speed up. They won't let us, reduce all of those checks that we're doing. What has your experience been?
In Vietnam, it's a bit weird, isn't it, Cherry, that there isn't a lot of real regulation.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a lot of, like when we work with the bank, there's a whole lot of report, for example. So each individual division have to make a certain of number of report to the government, to the authority, and to the higher level. So we helping them to do, okay, why don't we just centralize the data? So we don't need to work like hundreds of the divisions have to do the same thing repeatedly. So it's how one way we help them to still comply with the governments, but reduce the number of the burden for people or times waste, all that. So that's how we make it faster. And I don't think that we dealing a lot with the government compliance or policy and things. We don't. So,
But
so we
yeah,
yeah.
in
Is
my
it all right?
experience in an IT context, it's often I've forgotten the phrase, but it's often just a non-existent issue of the auditors or the regulations. But if you go and talk to the auditors or the controllers, like a DevOps context is a great example, right?
Yep.
That we want to change how we work in DevOps and we want to automate change and do away with the cab, and you can't do that. It's ITIL says you have to have one. Then when you go and talk to the auditors or to the regulators and say, this is what we want to do, my universal experience is they go, oh yeah, we know about that. We've already read about that. We've been wondering when you were going to come, and wait, you're telling me that instead of some human sleep deprived and eating pizza is going to change production, we're now going to have a robot do it that keeps a meticulous record of everything it does. Where do I sign? Right? When you go and explain to the regulators what it is you're doing and why you're doing it, and if you can link it back to thought leadership outside your organization, that you're not just pulling this out of the first available orifice, and there is some foundation for this, then I never have problems with auditors and external regulators.
I had exactly the same. I had exactly the same experience. So there was a well-held sort of assumption that all the paperwork needed to be kept, and you couldn't do things digitally because the government didn't accept it. But I don't like to, I always like to check the assumption. So I went and asked, and they said, "Oh no, we can do a very quick audit, and after that, everything can be digital." And at that point in time, we were storing so much paper. We had multiple warehouses full of paper for this business that was operating in Malaysia. Like, quite seriously, it was a big portion of our rents that we were paying. So just by challenging that assumption and working past it, and I imagine it's similar when you talk about the 20th century work practices. There's a lot of those work practices which are purely based on an assumption of that this is the only way you can do it.
And I hate to say it, but some of those objections don't come from a place of integrity, right? So sometimes those objections are thrown up because people are defending their turf and their comfort zone and they even know it's not true.
Yeah, there's a lot of fear driving it. I was curious because I've had a very similar experience when I actually go and talk to regulators, or even when I talk to risk people within an organization. But it is a very common roadblock that's thrown up.
Right now, it's the cybersecurity card. Right? If someone wants to stop you doing anything, they just play the cybersecurity card, and you are stopped in your tracks. Oh, it's a cybersecurity risk. Bang, you're dead. It's like the big black card they can play.
Yeah.
And at any point in time, there's always some card that someone can play within an organization, which is the killer card that just says you have to stop what you're doing.
Can you dig into that example, Rob? Has there been any recent examples where you've been working with companies where internally the cybersecurity card is being played, and maybe some strategies?
Not for us, I don't think, Cherry, but I'm talking about what I hear on LinkedIn and the experiences of those I connect with rather than us specifically.
What about other
risk aversion? Yeah.
What about other cards that people play? Got some examples where they're pulling that sort of, that weighty card and ways, strategies to work around that, or how you approach it with your clients?
How have people tried to stop us in our tracks, Cherry, in some of our engagements? How have they thrown roadblocks up?
So far, I don't think that we are facing that problem, or we face. I can't recall it.
I'm not sure Cherry notices roadblocks is what's really
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, the situation normally is that we have new leader. That
Right.
new leader comes, then everything going well on the process, and then there's a new leader, and then they don't want to continue, or
that's what kills us stone dead. Is
that can be very, 2 steps forward, 1 step backward, and it's really difficult to, if that person, that new leader, didn't buy in the ideas, then everything can be destroyed quickly.
Well, you would expect that.
Yeah. Yes, I think that's the only thing that we see so far.
Well, we've got another experience here from Mark Simpson. I've directly experienced one government department in Wellington where all delivery has been crippled for the last 2 years because of the CISO's insistence on near perfection in cybersecurity. And I've had similar experiences with clients I've worked with. And look, I don't even think it's a compromise of perfection. I think it's a lack of yes and. It's like, yes, we need to achieve some of these things and, make progress in the business. And if you're just looking...
I call it zero risk, right? There is a culture of capital Z, zero risk. And it comes down right from the board. It comes down from the owners and the governance to say, it's so embarrassing if we have cybersecurity, we must have none. Right? We're just absolute directive from the top. This must never happen. There must be zero cyber risk. Not how can we accommodate the risk and what can we do to mitigate future events. And yes, we accept that it's impossible for you to keep the bad guys out, and perimeter security is a myth. And there's no understanding at all. There's just, it must never happen. And so it is a blanket, unreasonable perfectionism, but it doesn't come from the cybersecurity guy. It comes from the board. We will fire you if there's a cybersecurity event.
Yeah, the trend in response to it has been like the risk appetite statements and things like that, but they don't seem effective enough at sort of changing people's behavior in response to those. I think well-meaning directions from the board.
And especially in government, right? In Wellington, we call it the Dominion risk, right? Which is the risk of being in the Dominion, the daily paper. So Dominion risk is another one of those black cards in government, right? We must never be in the papers. And boy, if you have a cybersecurity event in government, the public response, the media response is totally unreasonable. It is humiliation and attack and fury and total, the public has an expectation of zero risk on government for cybersecurity. So it's coming from the ultimate governors of the government that it must never happen. We will pillory you. We will absolutely go berserk every time a government department has a cybersecurity event. There's no reasonableness in the public perception either.
It's interesting. I've also noticed there's a misalignment across all the people who are working on mitigating those risks. Like when I ask them, not everyone is even aware that they're trying to mitigate a reputation risk. And so, it's quite misguided in terms of what the actions that they're taking, because what you might take to reduce reputation, yes, you would like to reduce the probability of cybersecurity issues, but there's other things that you want to do, like maybe have a good PR agency available, because you can't protect yourselves 100%.
If I can be wildly cynical, a lot of cybersecurity events are not existential risks.
Mm-hmm.
So you lost some data. Gosh, that's really unfortunate for the people. But in terms of the survival of the organization, unless they destroy while they're in there, if they do ransomware attack and lock you down, then suddenly it's existential. But a lot of cybersecurity risk is only reputational. So yes, we should mitigate.
So we getting a lot of comments a lot of people experiencing this. I think locally as well as abroad. But it might need to be another whole conversation, because we're nearing that time where we've got to wrap up. So just to maybe replay on a few of the themes. Now, anything that stood out for you as sort of some key takeaways listening to Rob and Dr. Cherry?
Well, it's not exactly new, because we talked about how we're not doing a huge amount of new stuff, but it's good to hear that it's the idea of the apex executive, right? If you want to bring about change, you need to be in control of a significant area where you have autonomy, right? You can collaborate with other people, but you have to have a significant amount of control over what you're doing. And ideally, the person who has that the most in an organization is the CEO, but it doesn't have to be limited to them.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, and following on for that, if you're the CTO or CIO, we talked about engaging with the CEO, because there are going to be those areas which sort of cross over, and you will need alignment on how we're working across the organization, because some of those high authority actions from the CEO or from the board might be undermining what we're doing. So that was a key one. And you also talked about focusing on the desired outcomes rather than going, direct to these sort of change activities that might need to be a response to those. We also had identify waste and get the crap out of the system as a quick win.
Totally. The low-hanging fruit, if you've got the mandate to change, if you can steamroll through all those impediments and people trying to stop you doing what you're doing, then the low-hanging fruit is just immense everywhere. I call it leaving candy on the doorstep. There's money just sitting on the table for organizations that want to pick it up. It just does my head in that they don't.
Very good. Well, where can people find you, Rob and Dr. Cherry?
Yep.
On our website.
Yeah.
And on LinkedIn. And if you speak Vietnamese, then Cherry's on Facebook. Yep.
Excellent. Well, definitely, so Rob's a great follow on LinkedIn. Shares, I think he mentioned a few of things he shared recently on there. So some really good conversations to be had. I think, Rob, you love to have a chat with people on LinkedIn. So, yeah. And Dr. Cherry, it sounds like you've been doing amazing work with businesses in Vietnam. So, yeah, if people have interest to find out more, reach out either through the Teal Unicorn website, where they've got monthly newsletters, which I'm a subscriber of, and other ways to get in contact, or via Facebook, as Rob said.
They can find me on LinkedIn as well. I have a LinkedIn link here.
you might get an explosion of engagement on LinkedIn. We call it the CTO Lifeline bump. Hey,
Oh.
Noah, where can people find you, Noah?
So for people who want to or thinking about going on this journey, actually, but aren't quite sure where to start and aren't sure that they're ready, I offer coaching. I'm quite happy to work with people to help them get to the point where they can go on this journey and they can actually change their organizations for the better. So you can find me at noahcantor.com/coaching call, put in the promo code 2025 free coaching, and I'd love to have a chat with you. And then, when you are ready, we'll definitely connect you with Rob and Cherry, and they will blow your world up, or maybe just blow your mind.
Absolutely. And you can find me on LinkedIn and all the other socials. So if you're interested in individual or group coaching, just reach out. And Dr. Cherry just shared me her LinkedIn, so you can find her there. Anyway, this has been another CTO Lifeline episode. Fascinating chat. Thank you, everyone, for engaging, participating, helping guide the conversation. And until next time, see you later.